Once again, I'm asking my fellow Locked On NHL hosts to reconsider their power rankings voting this week because there's no way the Bruins should be behind the Panthers this week.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoked B. Today is Thursday, April 11th, and I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine, free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring now. Terms and conditions apply. Again, a big thank you to those who have already subscribed to the podcast. If you haven't done so, hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Each new episode will be automatically added to your feeds for you to download, listen, and enjoy. A programming note, I will not be recording a podcast tomorrow. I'm heading into Toronto for a funeral as my uncle passed away a couple of weeks ago. So please bear with me on this one-day hiatus. We'll be back on Monday to recap Boston's game against the Pittsburgh Penguins on Saturday and to tee up the final two games of the regular season. Today, we're talking about the latest power rankings and how somehow the Boston Bruins are fourth in the East behind the New York Rangers, the Carolina Hurricanes, and the Florida Panthers. Now, I can I can see how the Bruins are behind the Rangers and the Hurricanes. The Rangers have 110 points, a .696 point percentage. They're first in the conference by 3 points over both Carolina and Boston. No problem. I voted for the Rangers in the top spot. I could even say Carolina being over Boston because, again, they're level at 107 points each. The Hurricanes have 4 more regulation wins than the Bruins, and they have a better goal differential, plus 45 for the Bruins compared to plus 61 for the Hurricanes. And of course, the Hurricanes did just beat the Bruins by a score of 4-1 the other night. Now, when it comes to the Panthers, though, I'm not quite seeing it. The Bruins are 3 points up on the Panthers for top spot in the Atlantic Division. They have a .677 point percentage compared to .658 for the Panthers. Yes, the Panthers do have 5 more regulation wins than the Bruins and 4 more regulation or overtime wins. They have a better goal differential. They're at plus 60, whereas the Bruins are at plus 45. But the Bruins did just beat the Panthers over the weekend, and they took the season series going a perfect 4-0 against the Panthers, outscoring them 13-8 over that stretch. In fact, the Panthers are one of 7 teams the Bruins have picked up full 100% of points against. Only 2 of those are teams that they've played 4 times, and they won 4 games against the Florida Panthers, 4 games against the Toronto Maple Leafs. They still have a game coming up against the Ottawa Senators, but they're 2-0 against them as well. So putting Florida above the Bruins, I mean, I guess on the surface level, you could say the Panthers, yeah, they beat them in the playoffs last year. They might have their number. They have more regulation wins. They have a better goal differential. Their underlying numbers are better, but Boston went 4-0 against them, and they have a 3-point lead in the Atlantic over the Panthers. So how are we putting Florida over Boston in the power rankings? I just don't get it. You have the Maple Leafs, Lightning, Islanders, and Penguins rounding out the top 8. So let's just take a look at the current playoff teams in the Eastern Conference. The wild card, Tampa Bay Lightning have secured a playoff position, and they are in a wild card spot at the moment. They are 6 points back of the Maple Leafs with 4 games remaining. There could be some movement in the Atlantic Division. Florida could overtake Boston. Boston could fall down as far as 3rd if the Maple Leafs win out and the Bruins lose their remaining 3 games. The Lightning could overtake Toronto if Toronto loses out and they win all the remaining games. A lot of movement there. It looks, though, as though Boston is going to play Tampa in the opening round, and they've gone 1-1-2 against the Lightning this season. So not as ideal as playing Toronto or even Florida in the opening round. Right now, there's a race not only for the second wildcard spot, but also 3rd in the Metropolitan Division. The Islanders sit there right now, despite having a minus 21 goal differential. The Capitals are in the second wildcard spot with 85 points and a minus 40 goal differential. They, along with the Pittsburgh Penguins, Detroit Red Wings, all have 4 games remaining, and there's 1 point separating those 3 teams. The Islanders have 4 games remaining as well. Who knows? They could even fall out of the playoff picture altogether, going from 3rd in the Metro to outside. The Flyers, they're 2 points back, but they've played 79 games, so it's looking as though they will be on the outside of the playoff picture. Right now, if we were going by the old 1-8 format, well, usually they gave division winners the advantage over or give them second place, first and second division winners. You get that at least. If the Bruins were in second, they'd be playing the New York Islanders. Instead, looks like they'll be playing the Tampa Bay Lightning, a much better team. We talked about that earlier this week and how messed up the playoff situation is. At any rate, again, the Rangers and the Hurricanes I'd put over the Bruins. I said for a bit now that I think the Hurricanes are the team to beat in the East, especially after adding Jake Gensel, Evgeny Kuznetsov. They've got, earlier this season, they had some real goaltending issues. That has been solved right now with the emergence of the tandem of Peter Kochetkov and Frederik Andersen. I really think they are the team to beat in the Eastern Conference. So yes, I would put the Bruins behind the Rangers and the Hurricanes, but I would still put them above the Panthers just because they just beat them a couple days ago to secure a 4-0-0 record against the Panthers this season. It doesn't get much more dominant than that, and that alone should have put them above them in the power rankings, not to mention the 3-point lead that they have. Now, that's not to say the Bruins are primed to win the Atlantic and emerge as the Eastern Conference finalists from that group. They do have some things to work on here over the remaining 3 games, and we'll touch on that here as the podcast continues. Eat stress-free this spring with Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals. Every fresh, never-frozen meal is chef-crafted, dietitian-approved, and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. You can choose from a weekly menu of 35 options like Calorie Smart, Keto, Protein Plus, Vegan and Veggie. Also discover more than 60 add-ons every week like breakfast, on-the-go lunch, snacks, and beverages to help you stay fueled and feel good all day long. So what are you waiting for? Get started today and fuel up for your springtime goals. Just head to factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 and use code LockedOnNHL50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next box. We're celebrating Earth Day all month long. Look out for the Earth Month Eats badge on the menu for our lowest carbon footprint meals. Again, that's factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 using code LOCKEDONNHL50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next box while your subscription is active. Thank you so much again, friends, for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine, free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. While you're over on YouTube, check out Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel with all the latest news, analysis, opinions that you have come to know and love from the Locked On Podcast Network, free and available on YouTube and the Amazon Fire TV channels app. So the Boston Bruins have 3 games remaining on the regular season schedule before the playoffs begin, and they will be against the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Washington Capitals, Ottawa Senators, 2 of those teams fighting for their playoff lives, while the Senators will be looking to finish strong after a disappointing season. There's a few things that we need to see the Bruins work on or figure out here over the remaining 3 games, and one of those is definitely the power play that has been really struggling as of late. In fact, since the trade deadline on March 8th, the Bruins rank 26th in the NHL with a 15% success rate on the man advantage. Now, if there's one thing that's kind of also encouraging, is that the Toronto Maple Leafs are even worse, 11.1% over that span, and the Florida Panthers just a touch better at 15.6%. But unfortunately, the Tampa Bay Lightning, since the trade deadline, they are top ranked in the power play with a 35.6% success rate. To go along with that, they're also second ranked on the penalty kill at 93%. So if the Bruins are indeed going to match up against the Lightning, special teams could be a big factor. And the Lightning currently rank 1 and 2 on the power play and the penalty kill, respectively. The Bruins do have the third-ranked penalty kill since the trade deadline. Andrew Peeke has really come in and helped in that area, replacing Derek Forbort on the penalty kill unit. But the power play, pretty bad at 11% success rate, 26th in the NHL. David Pastrnak hasn't scored a power play goal over that span. James Van Riemsdyk, who helped out on the power play earlier this season, hasn't scored a power play goal since February 17th. Brad Marchand hasn't scored one since January 13th. Perhaps it's kind of a mental thing at the moment. Jim Montgomery, according to Bell Fraser of the Hockey News, said, they talked to the power play unit on Monday. They had meetings. Guys aren't seeing plays that are there. They're not seeing it in practice sometimes either, which is surprising. He's standing there. He can see it. His old eyes can see it. They also should be seeing it. Now, the first unit of Charlie McAvoy, Marchand, Pavel Zacha, Pastrnak, and Van Riemsdyk, they were getting reps together before practice on Monday. That session, according to Bell Fraser, got loud, some expletives, pointers from Jim Montgomery. The Bruins against the Hurricanes on Tuesday did not score on the power play, and in fact, they gave up a shorthanded goal to Seth Jarvis, which was counterproductive, obviously. The second unit was made up of Charlie Coyle, Morgan Geekie, Danton Heinen, Jake DeBrusk, Hampus Lindholm. The confidence, just not there, Jake DeBrusk said, and that's the biggest thing with power plays. Now, overall, the Bruins have a 22.6% success rate. That's good for 11th in the league. But the recent numbers, again, are concerning with the playoffs coming up. Not really a new story for the Bruins. They've had power play issues for a while. Obviously, the old story that they went 0 during the first round against the Canadiens and in 2011, still managed to win. You can't expect that. And the Bruins do need to get things going. Pastrnak leads the Bruins with 12 power play goals, but none since March 7th. Over a month now, which is pretty crazy. So the Bruins, again, 3 regular season games remaining. They'll need to try to figure things out here, especially on the power play. James Van Riemsdyk, I don't know if he's fighting something, but he has really fallen off as of late. Perhaps instead of deploying Hampus Lindholm on the second unit, you give a guy like Mason Lohrei a look. They had Parker Wotherspoon getting some power play reps the other day. Maybe Charlie McAvoy isn't the best QB1 for the PP. As good as he is in all facets of the game, he's not Quinn Hughes or Cale Makar offensively, and that could keep him from winning a Norris Trophy unless they split it up and go offense, defense for the Defenseman of the Year award. But something's not right there, and if the Bruins can't figure that out, they could be buried by special teams if they do indeed play against the Tampa Bay Lightning in round one. They also got to figure out the line combinations. We talked the other day about how Jake DeBrusk is on the third line, currently with Jesper Boqvist and Trent Frederick. Van Riemsdyk skating with Beecher and Lauko on the fourth line. Morgan Geekie bumped up to the second line. Some of this could change with the addition of Pat Maroon. He could be ready to go against the Penguins on Saturday. So, first of all, who comes out of the lineup to make way for him? Do you take out a physical energy guy like Jacob Lauko and try to keep some more offensively minded guys in the lineup? Do you put him on the second line with Marchand and Coyle and bump Geekie back down and reunite the JB line on the fourth line? Some questions there to be answered by Jim Montgomery. And for me, I would like to see Jake DeBrusk back in the top six, put him with Marchand and Coyle, and the Geekie on the second line experiment. You want your best players as well positioned as possible to succeed. And that's, for me, Jake DeBrusk in the top six, getting top 6 minutes. That's where you want him to be. I understand trying to get him and Frederick running a bit warmer as the playoffs approach. But for me, put Jake DeBrusk back in the top six and maybe give Mason Lohrei some second power play time, at least, to try to get things going there. There's one other thing the Bruins need to work on in the final 3 games, and we'll discuss that here as the podcast continues. When you're drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could just handpick the best stars for your business team as well? If you're building your talent roster, you need Indeed. If you hate waiting, U.S. data for Indeed shows that 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match their job descriptions the moment they sponsor a job. You can find top talent with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like matching assessments, virtual interviews, and more. Indeed does the hard hiring work for you. All you have to do is sponsor a job and they'll match you with quality candidates. Start hiring right away. Join over 3 million businesses worldwide using Indeed to hire great talent fast. Visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring now. With Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. That's Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions do apply. The cost per application pricing is not available for everyone. And if you need to hire, you need Indeed. Again, that's Indeed.com/lockedon. One of the big questions for the Bruins heading into the postseason is the goalie rotation. Will Jim Montgomery stick with the goalie rotation? Will he pick a goalie and run with him? Or will he give a goalie just a shorter rope for the postseason? For me, I don't know if I would go a straight rotation, like odd games, even games. You do have to kind of take things as they come in the playoffs and maybe ride that proverbial hot hand. But I don't think there's any question that there should be both goalies being deployed in the postseason. Now, if you're going on recent stats, again, dating back to the trade deadline, March 8th, it's clear who the better goalie has been. It's Linus Ullmark. He's gone 5-2 with a .947 save percentage. Jeremy Swayman has gone 4-3 with an .874 save percentage. In the month of April, both goalies have been playing pretty well. Both have made 2 starts. But again, Ullmark has the advantage. 2-0 with a .967 save percentage. Swayman is 1-1 with a .909 save percentage. If you stick with the current rotation, it will be Ullmark playing against the Penguins and then wrapping up the regular season with a start against the Ottawa Senators, with Swayman getting the start in between against the Washington Capitals. Now, that's provided the Bruins don't do what they have done at times over the past few years, which is kind of give a bunch of guys a rest, call some players up, and try to keep them injury-free and fresh for the postseason. They will have like 3 or 4 days off before the playoffs start, depending on whether they start on Saturday or Sunday next week. But for me, I give Linus Ullmark the game 1 start, but I do not hesitate to change it up and put Swayman in at the earliest sign of trouble, or start him in game 2 if Ullmark is shaky in game 1. Like, there's no reason to, like they did last year, stick with Ullmark through game 5 against the Panthers, in which he struggled and had that error to give up the game-winning goal. Game 6, which didn't go well, finally gave Jeremy Swayman some love. I would go to Swayman at the earliest sign, even if Ullmark plays pretty well. Say they lose like 3-2. There's no rule that says you have to stick with one guy in the playoffs. That's how teams traditionally do it. But more and more, you're seeing tandems in the playoffs. Just look at Carolina. I mentioned them earlier. Anderson, Kochetkov. I can easily see them getting an even split of starts in the postseason. Even the Rangers. Igor Shesterkin, your number 1 goalie. But Jonathan Quick is going to get some playing time. You look at the Maple Leafs. They could easily go with Joseph Woll and Ilya Samsonov. The only team in the Atlantic unlikely to do a platoon is the Lightning with Andrei Vasilevskiy. They don't have that more solid backup that they can turn to. They're going to ride or die with him. But so many teams have these goalie rotations in the NHL at the moment, and you're going to see teams riding, even Florida. Sergei Bobrovsky's been great even this season, but I could see them giving Anthony Stolarz some love in the postseason as well. So again, don't hesitate to make a change in net. Jim Montgomery. The Islanders, if they squeak in, they certainly will go with Varlamov and Sorokin. You have the Penguins rocking with Tristan Jarry and Alex Nedeljkovic. Up and down the Eastern Conference, certainly there are teams that employ both goalies, and you're going to see that in the postseason, without question. So the Bruins should not hesitate, and it's not something they need to work on per se over the past 3 games, but it's something, if they haven't already, they need to get their minds around. Now, Boston's next game is against the Pittsburgh Penguins. It's not till Saturday. Again, I'm not going to be jumping on tomorrow because I'll be attending a funeral. The Penguins are in action tonight in a huge game for them against the Detroit Red Wings. The Penguins, let's see how many games. They have 4 games remaining. 1 tonight against the Penguins, who they're really in a fight with for that second wildcard spot. Then they play the Bruins on Saturday, and then they finish off against the Predators and Islanders. So they're not going to be wanting to drop any points. It's going to be a tough test for the Bruins. It's an 8 p.m. start on Saturday. Maybe I'll jump on Sunday to quickly recap that one, or Saturday to preview it if there's anything huge that happens. But again, thank you for bearing with me as I take tomorrow off. That's it for today's episode, my friends. Thank you so much for joining me once again. Please do take care of yourselves and take care of each other. And we'll talk to you again here soon on Locked On Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day.